you sure? Get up.
Yeah, you're winning.
So cool.
You have mating attack.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Would you?
Awesome game.
She won. Victorious.
Wonderful. So,
Yeah,
if you haven't been
sort it
here
out.
before, my name is Shannon Bailey. I'm the chief curator here, and I put together this show of amazing female artists who did some kind of chess-related artwork. And you can see the names there. We've got these incredible pieces. Some of them are very literal interpretations. Some are very beautiful, light interpretations. But the goal was to try to get people just to see the game that is mostly male-dominated a little bit differently. We also wanted to try to encourage women to get more into the game, and since this show opened in October, we started women's chess lessons over at the club on Thursday nights. They grew so quickly that we had to move it to a different venue. They're quite popular. They're taught by female grandmasters. We've got a lot of great programming going on. And we're just so happy to see so many familiar faces and some new faces here tonight. And I am honored to introduce our special guest, the extremely talented artist, Fischetti. Her piece, The Sun and the Moon, that everyone's standing around is, and I'm not saying it because she's here, everyone can back it up, it has been the, kind of a masterpiece of the exhibition. It's like the highlight that everybody loves, chess players, art lovers, because it's so beautiful and has a beautiful story that she'll tell you about. It's called The Sun and the Moon. It was commissioned by Purling London, a luxury chess set company, and it is a standard tournament style, which you can see some of those like with Yoko Ono's, but then other people kind of created completely different sets, but it's this Stanton set that is used in tournament play. But Crystal has changed it and kind of added her signature style with her use of kind of color. So her artwork is inspired by light, speed, and space. She has strong interest in literature, culture, and philosophy, and her work invites the viewer to enter worlds of color to shape or distort our perceptions of reality. With this exhibited piece, Crystal challenges a typical story of chess as a game of war by illustrating concepts of courtship, love, and attraction. So I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. Her work is represented in numerous private collections in London, New York, Los Angeles, Milan, Rome, Geneva, and Shanghai, and she has a work in the collection of the Museum in Shanghai. So again, with pleasure, I welcome Crystal.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. Well, I think maybe we should just gather around the chess set and have a look. Well, I'll just very briefly talk about how this happened. I was invited by Purling London to create this chess set and chessboard as an art chess set. So, but what I wanted to do was create something that was interactive, an art piece, as well as a chess set as well at the same time. So what I did was I created this theme around the sun and moon, which I'll be talking about upstairs in great detail. But really, the thing is, I'm not a chess player. So I was coming in from it as an artist, and I thought, wouldn't it be really cool to create an art piece that is constantly moving and constantly shaping as the players are playing it. And so I read a lot of Carl Jung, a psychologist, who had theories on masculine and feminine energies. And I also was very inspired by stories by my mother about the sun and moon and the courtship between the sun and moon. And so as the game is played, the sun and moon come together as an eclipse and then disperse again until the next eclipse. And so I painted each and every one of these chess pieces myself, and then I also lacquered them as well. The blues that are in here are also incorporated in other pieces, in other blues. So I wanted it to be completely unison. So there's elements of blues in there and silver in each piece here. and on this side here, and then elements of orange, yellow ochre, and red, and orange and yellow and gold in there, and this one too, as well as on here, on the board. The board I measured exactly, although it looks really sporadic and you know, a little bit haphazard. I actually wanted it like that. You can see there's some actual linear ruler and pencil lines here, but I wanted it to kind of vibrate. So I'm really interested in vibrations and the idea that nothing is permanent and everything's constantly moving. And then I created the board, and then it all kind of came together and lacquered it, and then you can see my little signature here. At the bottom of each piece, there's the Purling London little emblem there, which I think is quite cute. That's it, really. Have you got any quick questions at all?
Somebody modeled these first? Like
Yeah.
clay?
There's a master craftsman outside of London, and he does them himself. So even the knight, you can see the ridges. I mean, I can show you the ridges there. The hair is just so beautifully done, and the teeth as well, which was at times quite difficult to paint and get the paint in there, just like the bishop here and the ridge inside here as well, if you can see it. Yeah, it is acrylic paint, yeah. And then I lacquered it, yeah. Varnished it, varnish spray. I had to get into nature after a lot of lacquering, because it was just, I was like, why am I doing this? But artists die for their art, so I'm alive though, which is good. Yeah. Any questions?
How long did it take?
Yeah, it didn't take too long, but essentially about 2 to 3 months on and off. I created this piece in London, and with the intention it was actually going to go to Harrods, which is a shopping, very luxurious shopping centre, shopping mall store in London, Knightsbridge, and I was really keen on attracting the Dubai client, essentially at the very beginning, and I really wanted to actually use gold, like real gold. And then I thought, I'm not going to use that. But maybe another time I might do that. And then it didn't work out. As these things happen, everything happens for a reason. I was then asked by Purling if I wanted to be involved in this amazing exhibition, and I of course jumped to the chance, and it's here for all of you lovely people to see. Yeah.
So is this one of many, or is this the only piece?
This is a one-off, completely one-off, yeah. So I was saying earlier to Shannon, if one of these pieces get accidentally stolen or broken, I actually don't mind. It kind of lends quite well to the mythology of it and the legacy of it. And it's kind of like almost like a mandala. Like Buddhist monks, they create these mandalas that they then burn and just all like remove the sand off, and it's just, you experience the piece, there and then it disappears, but actually it has never disappeared, because you either choose to remember that within your heart, within your soul, and there's something around that, I think, here too. Yeah.
You said you were influenced by various theories of masculinity and femininity. Was Jung one of your influences?
Carl Jung,
Yes.
yeah.
And also your mother had told you stories about the sun and the moon.
Yes.
Where did those come from?
Yeah, well, I'm half South American, so my mother is Colombian, and I have a very rich Indian ancestry. And I'm wearing a sort of a Peruvian tribal pendant just here. And this is actually the sun god, funnily enough. And she would tell me a story as a child, what my ancestors used to tell their kids about the sun and moon, that the sun would die every single night to let the moon breathe, which I find, oh God, just melting, just the idea that a man would ever do that for me. It's amazing. So just the romanticism about that. And so, and we had this book called The Sun and Moon, and the shape of the sun was round, and the moon was encapsulated within the rotundity of the sun, a bit like a yin and yang symbol. Yeah.
But with that, with the yin and the yang, it almost looks like symbolically that, you know, they're like kind of opposites. So is it supposed to symbolize opposites attracting but yet coexisting in a small space?
Yeah.
Or how is this analogy, what's the analogy to this chess game?
Well, I think the thing is that with, I'll go with the Carl Jung psychology first, that he very strongly believed that we all have masculine and feminine energies, so that we are both sexes. And so, and also Buddhist monks, when they get to a certain level in their training, let's say, they are reaching that point where they are detached from the world and balanced with the fact that they have the both masculine and feminine energy. So Carl Jung believed that the sun was a masculine energy, a very kind of like forceful, time-sensitive energy, eagle, sun. So lots of like kind of like a list of masculine energies in nature, and then feminine energies in nature being the snake, for example, the mouse, the lamb, and then so there's all these symbologies around, you know, Christ and the lamb and the moon being a feminine energy and the sun being a masculine one and the eagle attacking the snake. And so in nature there's a constant dance between these two energies, that without them there wouldn't possibly be a need for survival, because we've got to have that duality in life generally so that we can understand about ourselves by observing the opposite. Anyone else?
Should we head up
Yeah, sounds good.
Did you ever try playing chess?
I just did, yeah. But I did a bit as a kid, yeah. I won. Well, hello everyone. Hello. Ciao. Hola. ¿Qué tal? I am Cristal Fischetti. There's me in action there. I am an artist from London, little old England. And I graduated from the University of Leeds in fine art in 2006. And my major, as you would say in America, was abstraction painting. With lots and lots of theory, theory-based philosophy, psychology, and great years of my life. And I also graduated from the University of the Arts, which is essentially the London College of Fashion in accessories design. So I'm also trained leathersmith, so I make leather goods. That was in 2012. So what is abstraction? So by the Latin definition, it's abstractus, means drawn away. So for me, I like the idea of pulling away from the material world, so taking away, subtracting almost. And I like the idea of taking away and removing these preconceived, pre-programmed labels of this world. What makes this table a table? Why can't it be a cat, for example? And it could be a cat, but how we've programmed ourselves is a table. So there's a lot of linguistic formalities that I try to get rid of, and particularly with the sensitivities of religion and politics as well. I believe that all people are equal, and so there's no need for any of that nonsense. So the worlds I create through painting are sometimes more real than this one. It's almost like I'm space traveling and I'm diving through and into an actual world that I've created, which is equally very fascinating and very, very scary as well. So what do I do all day? I mean, artists are constantly asked, like, what do you do? And sometimes don't do very much. Sometimes I do lots and lots, particularly before a show or for this lovely talk here today. But I always find that listening is key. So a lot of that involves me sitting down in a park or at the beach and just sitting and receiving information. So lots of people watching, lots of going to shows, exhibitions, talking with people, engaging with people. That for me is already making art, taking in information, a bit like an actor does, trying to engage and create a character. I do that as an artist, so constantly observing and taking in information, along with obviously painting. As soon as I get up in the morning, I'm looking at my painting and I'm creating visually, physically, and reading lots. And I ask a lot of why and how questions. I think I always have as a child anyway, which has probably perturbed my parents quite a bit. So I started off in the traditional modes of painting and drawing, like most abstract artists. So we know the rules, we do all that intense training of life models, anatomy. I've had many experiences at the University of Leeds where I chose to go to the science department to see dead bodies, so that I could really get involved in seeing what it means to be alive, what it means to be dead. So I did a lot of portraiture and skeletal studies. And I was really obsessed with portraiture. I really thought it was the way I was going, actually. But then these labels decided to disappear naturally. So by the second year of university, these portraits became more abstract, more vibrational, more colour and light and movement space-based. So now I physically become the portrait, quite literally sitting inside of my canvas or sitting on top of my scrolled piece of paper. So I feel the motions. And they become painted scrolls for shows, very, very large pieces, very influenced by Japanese art. And so this continual line work gets painted onto canvas for client commissions. And here's a bit of a process here. And they become a final geometric painting. So this experimentation at the beginning, which was just trying out sitting on the scroll, actually becomes something really special and becomes something that becomes a conversational piece for someone's home. And clients are happy, joy, smiles all round. So the process of my work is based on mark making. So lots and lots of gesture, lots of, it's almost like the cave paintings of Lascaux when our ancestors used to put our hands in blood and then just kind of mark our identity. There's a lot of mark making in my paintings, in my drawings. Lots of scratching, pulling away, pushing away, creating space. And picking up physically the canvas and walking around it, and there's a lot of work. It's actually incredibly exhausting painting. Not many people realize, well, at least the painting that I do, it's very, very physical, so it's good to be in shape doing that, as well as doing other things like yoga for me. And it's really important that I keep pushing the envelope. Harold Rosenberg was a very, very famous American action painter in the 1950s. I'm not sure, maybe you're aware of him. And he believed that at the time in New York that the canvas was an arena in which to act, which with Jackson Pollock, particularly at the time, he was going in for it. He was diving in, he was creating, and it was, this is my performance, this is it, done, move on, next painting. And so I feel that this resonates with me in my process. There's me with my brush, creating space and layers and scratching away. And so my influences are Robert Motherwell, my absolute hero. And I won't swear here, but he's amazing. I love him. Willem de Kooning as well. There's me at the Guggenheim with a drawing in front of his work. Just seeing if we match. I think we do. Robert Rauschenberg, Jackson Pollock, so many. And this isn't a masculine thing. These aren't just male artists I'm throwing out there for the sake of it. There are female artists too, but for some reason, these artists really, really resonate with me. What's going on there? Hang on. And Jackson Pollock, I resisted him for so long. I think it's because he was just so famous. Everyone knew Jackson. Oh, abstract artist. Oh, you must like Jackson Pollock. And I said, no, actually, I don't. I actually don't like Jackson Pollock. You know what? 2 years ago, I think, he's actually a dude. He's actually quite good. I really resonate with him. I think he's amazing. There's also the PR that helped him so much as well with Peggy Guggenheim. Really launched his career. I feel that without her, actually, and Lee Krasner, his wife, he would not have maybe have been such a canon in the art history of abstraction. So he, as I say, was an action painter, very in tune with the subconscious. So removing the idea of, okay, this is what I'm going to paint with a preconceived idea. He just went in there and threw himself in. So releasing the subconscious mind. A bit like art jazz. It's very sporadic. It's very different every time you play. Like chess, just the same with abstract art. Helen Frankenthaler, also an absolute heroine. She created the technique of the soak-stained method. So she just purely threw the paint on the canvas, which was unprimed, which means that it was raw, completely raw, and it just soaked and very seductively drew in all of the materiality of the acrylic or the oil. And she also drank whiskey and smoked as she painted, and sometimes on top of it, which for me, heroine, great. So that's her there. And these are her paintings here as well, which are just phenomenal. If you've seen any of them in real life, they're nothing compared to this slide here. They're just absolutely mind-blowing. It's like you're walking into a world of just colour-filled, which means it's the 2 colours or 3 or 4 colours next to each other vibrating next to each other. And so she did a lot of that vibration, pure colour, not very much mixing, or at least it seems that way, and not very much blending. So very, very pure in that sense. Robert Motherwell. So he actually married Helen Frankenthaler. So 2 of my heroes were married to each other, which I'm dying, just the thought of that is so cool. Unfortunately, they got divorced after 15 years. But I always forget that bit. And I just believe that they bounced off each other. I particularly love his collages. So these are his collages here. That they helped him with his painting. So he concentrated on collage for a while and was very obsessed with it, much like myself. And then after 6 months, he would then concentrate on painting. So there's something about collage which you find an object, you found pieces, and you create something out of it by your placement of the pieces of paper that you find. And that's really fun because it allows your mind to not think so much. Very, very childlike. Most abstract artists, in fact, what we do is actually come back to that innocence, come back to the idea that there are no rules, everything is game. So that's it. And he was influenced, like myself, by the Japanese culture. And Aikido, which is the martial arts in Japan, is about going through like a life path. And that's what we do. We kind of just find the spirit as we are nature. Jackson Pollock says, I am nature, and glide through without thinking, hopefully, into our paintings and creating a legacy through our art. This is an example of his ink drawings. He said that he felt increasingly self-conscious, something that is awful in relation to the act of painting as he painted. So it was always about this flow, no thinking, which is a huge skill. It's like a meditation. And so these are examples of my linear work. which were an obsession of mine for a while, and they later became a major project, geometric meditations. I created a meditation of geometry every single day for the month of August in 2014. These are an example of my collages. Go back again. So these were collage journalistic pieces that I created in Los Angeles for the first time. I was also staying in New York as well, and I created a New York series, a Los Angeles series, and also a Maine series, which I think, you know, was really fun at the time before I decided to move here. And those later became part of a show in Los Angeles 2 or 3 times. So I put the pair of scissors there so you can see the size of what we're dealing with. So space and another Earth. So for me, I'm really interested in the idea of astral travel through the mind, the subconscious. Do we do that already through dreams? It's an open question. So tied in with this idea at the time 2 years ago, there was also the research through NASA of finding a new Earth for our humanity, the human race. And they were searching for multiple planets on the Kepler mission. Some planets that they found were too large, some were too treacherous, some were uninhabitable, some were. And I created a series of paintings called Going Astral. Here are the 2 examples. So as NASA were searching for this new Earth planet, I was also astral traveling through my paintings, which actually at a time for about a week I didn't really sleep very well because I was so engulfed in this idea that whatever I thought was real, the possibility, like mathematics, possibility. So there could be a possibility that these actual worlds I created could be real, and that freaked me out. Still does. Here's another one. So the idea that a thought releases a vibration, it's a frequency, and that can and does project us into another world we choose, as I said, does scare me. But we are also already creating our own worlds through thought. Quantum physics, I'm going to breathe here because it's a big one. I'm going to say that molecules are made out of atoms. Atoms are made out of subatomic particles, which are protons and electrons. These are made out of quarks, which are part of a superstring field. They in turn vibrate. If every material thing is in reality vibrating, then nothing is solid or real. So what is real? So even the chairs that you're sitting on, are they solid? Are you floating? We're also upside down as well. We're going like this. And so nothing is stable. Nothing is permanent, which actually can be quite satisfying to think that we don't have to have attachments to what is needed from ourselves in society. We can create whatever we want. And that allows a certain freedom, doesn't it? It is possible that the Going Astral paintings are just as real as my hand, which is empty space anyway. And this is a snapshot of the NASA Kepler Earth planet that they actually eventually found. And it's called Kepler, I'm saying it wrong, Kepler 186f. That could be our next home. Freaky, huh? But luckily that's 500 light years away. And it orbits a different star than the sun, which goes on to the Sun and Moon chess set. So why did I do this? So I was invited by Pearling London to create a commissioned luxury chess set and board. And so what is it? They are the Sun and Moon, the concept based around my childhood and the story that my mum used to reads to me of the sun and moon courting each other. The sun would die each night for the love that he had for the moon, each day and each night, until they eclipsed. They were united, but only fleetingly, for their symmetry dance to reoccur again until the next encounter. And would you have it, last night at 18:15, we had an eclipse. So they became one, basically, yesterday. And so the motivation behind my piece, I'm going to read out. It was really important to me that the chessboard and chess pieces I created would stand out with a cool and colourful edge, appreciated by the discerning client. They had to be playable art pieces. The concept for this chess set plays on the idea of courtship, based on love and seduction through the game of chess. So this is the process. Number one, very, very raw piece there. The painting begins on either side. Here's a full set. Lacquering begins, chessboard, very bare there. And then they become the final piece that you see downstairs. Each move that each player makes is an act of seduction. It is intelligent, calculated, elegant, slightly fearful, heated, cool, and overpoweringly sexy. The sun is represented in the gold and yellow hues on one side of the chess piece, and it is the heat and the masculine energy. The moon is represented in the silver and blue hues on the opposite side of the chess piece. It is cool and denotes the feminine energy. When these two energies come together at the middle of the board, it symbolizes their sensual dance and spiritual union, as it is an interactive art piece. So the physical appearance at the end of the game describes the eclipse coming together in abstract form. It is different each and every time for every player. So every time the chess players actually play the game, they're also creating a new art piece. Imagine a bird's eye view. Whoa, there's a new art piece every single time. And they're also, and the male and female are coming together and then disperse again. Paulo Coelho is a huge influence of mine. The Alchemist. I love his book. I actually have him on, what's it called? Talking books. I listen to him all the time. And he also has a manual called the Manual the Warrior of Light. And I created a series of paintings based on his philosophies, which are very Tao, Chinese, Japanese, philosophically based, Shinto almost. So the one on the left is sword in his hand. So they're all about the warrior, what it is to be a warrior. And the warrior, he believed, is someone that knows when to have a sword in his hand, being prepared, right? And so the one on the right is no such thing as an impossible love. There's absolutely no such thing, because we're made of it. We're made of love. And what I did with these is I painted them in acrylic and in oil, which essentially is like putting a glass of water and putting oil in it. It doesn't mix. It doesn't come together. As I said, I don't believe in possibilities, so I did it. I think I nailed this one, don't you think? And here are the other ones as well. The one in the middle is called Listen. So the warrior decides to listen, and that's one of his quotes. These are the warriors in a line. The one on the far left over here is the path. The warrior recognizes the path. Here are a few examples of digital collages and paintings that I've made, which I should continue at some point. It's been about 2 years. And so, as I said downstairs, I'm very interested in psychology. Carl Jung with the masculine and feminine energy theory, which I explained downstairs. Here are examples of some paintings I've created. So the one on the left is kind of soak-stained, actually, but the one on the far left, which is entrata di luce in Italian, means the entrance of light, is completely soak-stained, whereby the acrylic is being absorbed in, and I've also created some stitching there to facilitate the idea of my signature, my hand there. And the yellow is just pure pigment paint. The one on the right here is My Little Bean. So I had a series of those created in Shanghai, which are in the museum in the permanent collection there. They're very, very large paintings. I mean, they're bigger than me. So they're probably about that big, 10 feet tall. And it was the idea of nurturing a mother and a child coming together in love, pure love. Here are some more examples. And so my dream, one of my dreams, is to sit next to, as a canvas, by Robert Motherwell, many of my heroes, at the Guggenheim Museum in New York and in LACMA in New York. The light in me sees the light in you. Thank you so much for listening. Anyone have any questions?
So you mentioned things being always vibrating, being unstable. How do you make the jump from things being, unstable to being not real? How does that? There's a gap in logic for me.
The jump from being unstable to not real. I'm pondering on that, as you can tell. I'm actually pondering. I think that, I feel that it's kind of the same thing, really. Reality is a very subjective point of view. So what we see is not what other people see. So that can be unstable as well as unreal. That can be stable as well as real. I want to continue thinking about that. Thank you.
There's so much peace and love and quiet in your work, and I wonder if you feel a push-pull with the commercial nature of the art world and how you live in that world.
I do now. I live in it now. I'm gratefully being recognised for what I do as an artist. But for the majority of my artistic career, for the majority of the first 10 years since I was 21, was very hard. Very hard. With the crisis, the financial crisis in London. There is a sexism in the art world. In England, anyway, I can say that, in London. I worked in the art world for a few years, and the good thing is that I'm now being recognised for what I'm doing. It's also a very small world, so I think that if you are generous and kind with people and respectful, then that's also remembered too. But the first few years of my artistic career, I was actually using a lot of the masculine energy I was talking about earlier downstairs. It was like I had to be pushy and aggressive so that I could be heard, so that I wasn't just an object, right? And now it's kind of interesting that I don't need to be any of that now, because also with growth comes confidence and natural balance within myself. And I also feel that as a woman, I'm representing a lot of women artists, which actually gives me chills, that have deceased or are still trying to make their way out there.
You do things in spontaneous ways, or do you think about lighting it straight, for instance?
Yeah.
Think about it or sketch it when you're thinking first, or do you just do it? Or do you just...
Good question. Yeah, good question. It's something I'm actually struggling with, because there was a time, for a long time, I would just do the action painting that Jackson Pollock would do, for example. Just, all right, I also could see what I was going to paint. That doesn't happen so much anymore. But it's kind of a play between sporadic as well as automatic drawing. So automatic writing, like the Beat Generation was automatic writing. Keep going. And so that's kind of how I approach my work sometimes, with automatic drawing. There's also this thing I've been doing where I actually draw with my eyes closed. and with my left hand. The left hand thing happened because I had created a carpal tunnel syndrome in my right through painting every day and through yoga. And so I started painting my left, and like children as toddlers, are actually ambidextrous up until the age of 5, I believe. So that's quite nice to feel like I'm retraining myself as a human being, that I can facilitate both.
So
Yeah.
if you're left-handed, you should try with your right hand.
Yeah, but if I get tired, I'll paint with my left. Yeah, which is fun.
I was really curious about your chess piece out there.
Yeah.
Have you tried to correlate the strength of each piece with how they're cut, or is it just?
Can you repeat the question again,
I
please?
was wondering, have you tried to correlate the strength of what each piece can do?
Mm-hmm.
Does the color correlate to that, or is it just, or is each piece just uniquely made to be so?
I don't think I've understood your question,
Or
but
that queen has more power?
Yeah. So.
oh, I see. Okay, yeah. No, I mean, as I said downstairs before, it's we need to have this duality in this world. We've got to understand like this opposite. So without that understanding, there isn't really a conversation. But within those oppositional appreciations, there is an equality there. We see that there's an equality because there's something over there that I need, and there's something that over here that they need, right? So even the relationships that we have with friends and family, there's always an attraction with certain people particularly, because there's something in that person as an individual that draws us to ourselves, because we would like to be like that person, or there's something that we can learn from that person. But in terms of war, there's also that as well, unfortunately, where there's something that I really want in terms of greed. But I'm not interested in the war side of things. I'm more interested in the peace and love.
This may be a little more materialistic.
Yeah.
Have you always been able to survive by just your art?
Good question. Good question. No. Plain and simply. What's that? What do I?
You play?
No, plain and simply. Yeah. But I play in symphony through my paintings. But plain and simply, I didn't. I was a life model for a while, for 7 years, which I hated. But it helped me with my confidence, particularly. But I worked in the art world for a long time. I was an intern. I was a receptionist in major galleries in London, which was hugely eye-opening for me. As I said, kindness and generosity go a long, long way in any industry, anyway. And so there were certain galleries I worked in that the director of the gallery, which is a huge, huge famous person, which I won't name, would not really address us at all. And that's something that I thought was quite interesting. I don't believe in a pyramid system. I believe in the round system. So however that person got there, they should be thankful and grateful that they have this base underneath them. So the majority of it was university taught me a lot, but outside of university taught me a lot too. Yeah, but now I'm working as an artist. The last 3 or 4, I mean, I've always been working, really. But the last 3 or 4 years I've been making money as a salary every month, which is great. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
So there's been a big push from the Chess Hall of Fame and the Chess Club across the street to get more women and girls involved in chess. And I'm curious, being introduced to the chess world, do you get a definite, like, heavy masculine vibe energy?
No.
So then what do you attribute the disparity to?
The disparity of the chess pieces that I created?
No, of a lot more men and boys being involved in chess than women and girls.
I don't really notice it that much. I think it's because I'm not really a chess aficionado like most of you may be here in this room. But yeah, that's what I've understood. It's like a war. tactic. You know, it's a war.
But you said you didn't get that. You don't get a heavy masculine energy or vibe from your experiences with chess.
No, I don't. I don't really. But I think, you know what? I actually no longer come from a place of lack anymore. I don't think, oh, there's a lack in this. I come from a place of abundance more so as I'm getting older, and I think that by me creating this chess set, I mean, I'm evidence that I'm a woman and I've created the set, right? So hopefully, maybe, possibly, that will encourage more females to play chess. I'm not sure. Do you? Do you find it a very masculine?
Well, only because I'm immersed into it. Yeah, it's just a heavy. It skews toward males.
Yeah. So I mean, like, what are you doing so that doesn't? Right?
I introduced ladies' night chess class.
And that's great.
You raised a really interesting point because a number of us are chess educators, and we work with kids, and we work with young boys and young girls, and it's a trip to see how we can introduce the game to boys and girls in different ways to make it appeal to them.
Yeah.
And something I really enjoy about your chess set is that it's not portraying chess as just a big war where we're just trying to strangle the opponent's king. It's actually a convergence. It's a dance between these two pieces.
Yeah.
So that's I'm looking forward to trying to use that as a metaphor in some of my classes.
Well, that's great.
People,
yeah, that's great. I mean, the origins of chess that I've looked into so far come from India and Persia. And I was talking to Var earlier this morning that it was called chaturanga, which in Sanskrit means the four-legged staff pose, chaturanga dandasana. So it's the four-legged staff pose, which in yoga is like you're in a plank position, which is very heated, very, very heated. So that already, for me, brings up so many things. That Vara was saying that, as he plays chess and his opponent, like, you can see each other sweat, but you've got to be cool, calm and collected in your state of being, as also in your mind, you've got to be crystal clear, no pun intended, but you've got to be clear about how to create, how to strategize. And maybe we should have politicians that are more like that. Clear, right? Cool, calm and collected. Who knows?
You already.
Yeah, who was that? Yes.
If I may make a comment.
Sorry, just 1 second. I'm not sure if that answered your question. Yeah, okay, yes.
Okay. Piggyback comment here.
Yeah.
I think chess is really a heavily mental game. And some men are more in tune with that because you're strategizing, outdoing what the opponent's going to do and analyzing the move and all that. And in physical sports that women can be a part of, and I was that way when I was a tomboy, was the lamp, and so playing volleyball and basketball, and it's like there's physical release with the energy of the movement,
right?
And there's that physical release where a mental game there's no release.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there is a release, maybe because the men produce 4 particular hormones. I won't tell you which ones they are because I don't know. I will look into it though. And females too as well, 4 on each side. So maybe there is a chemical that is released as men play chess. Maybe it is. Maybe actually it is a good question in terms of going back there with the masculine, the male-centric chess playing world. Maybe there is something there that is really tapped into men, particularly as in their DNA, their kind of like way of. I'm not sure. Who knows? Maybe you can have a look into it. That could be quite interesting. Thanks for that. Yeah. No, thanks.
And your chess pieces with the color explosions like Jackson Pollock, it's like that starburst or that release.
Yeah. And I feel that when we die or when we do meditation or whatever, or when we're making love, like there's something there that just like releases, and I think that's a spirit, like something happens there. Something quite transcendental, quite tantric, possibly.
It's for the complementary colors you're using. orange and blue are complementary in the color wheel, right? So you can use red and green are complementary, or any other complementary color.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe for my next one I might do that.
But the orange represents the sun.
Yeah.
And the moon, yeah, blue. So.
Yeah, the blue and the silver, and something interesting that Shannon actually brought up this morning in a meeting, that in Peru, the Quechua, which is my tribe from my mother's side, believe that the gold came from the sun and that silver were the tears from the moon. And I thought that was lovely. I mean, I'm like a hopeless romantic Pisces artist, dyslexic, so. Thought that was quite cool.
You're a Pisces trait?
I possibly. Don't know. Any other questions? Yeah?
I just had a quick question about, so in your art, do you use any of the media to portray the same clothes you come across, or use texture?
Yeah, I mean, I do, actually in the chess pieces, you'll see if you go really close up to them and if you're allowed to touch them. I personally give my permission, but ask the museum, please. Otherwise I'll get into trouble again. You'll see that there is a materiality there that I've left, so you can actually see some of the acrylic that pops out a little bit. In my paintings as well, I really like to show the actual material, as well as pushing back and creating a space where you can't really see it. But in texture, as in real texture, I do through my collage work. I used to really throw everything in there, like leather, paper, anything, receipts, old letters, tickets. Actually, I had collected, because I really wanted to do a master's in London at the Royal College of Art, and every year I would try and I would get denied. So I had this collection of denied letters from the Royal College of Art that I painted on, and thought it would be really cool to exhibit them and frame them and see them as an art piece. But yeah, in terms of texture, I use anything I can.
So did you get bored with doing figure drawing and all that stuff and realism and all that because of what? Because it's the same old thing?
I found that, yeah.
Not enough of your own imagination and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a school that was very traditional, along with the fact that they were very hippie. So we were doing yoga and meditation from the age of 11. But the art was very, very traditional. We had life models and skulls, and I actually dragged in a skeleton. I was like 17. This is so weird, actually, thinking about it. I actually dragged a skeleton up the stairs through this huge school when I was 17, and like propped him or her. I think it was a hybrid actually, because the hips weren't really male, so they kind of put them together, him, her, masculine, feminine coming together, right? Together, and I just hooked her up and just hanging, and that was me doing that. But I found after a while, and then at university I continued doing that, and I found it didn't matter how far I went in with portraits, and then through the skeleton and through muscles and everything, and finally dead people. It was weird. I actually had to go through a corridor of dead bodies like this, and you could just see the feet with the tags on, and they were going to be researched by the students there. But yeah, and I had to go through them, and then a refrigerator, cold room, refrigerating room about this size with all sorts of crazy stuff in there.
It was like Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, and it was just little old me. I was 18. I just found it really limiting after a while. I found that didn't matter how much I could maybe see other colours within the skin tone, like green and blue and yellow or whatever. I mean, for me, it was never about black or white. It was never about religion. It was never about that. Actually, that's thanks to my parents who've brought me up so well. It was always about the essence of that human being. And I just kept going through and through, which then inevitably became abstraction, which is probably this release that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Are we wrapped up? Any other questions? A few last ones? And no? Well, thank you so much for coming and listening to me jabber on in my London accent. You're more than welcome to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook, crystal.fischetti, and Twitter, Chris Star Travel, Chris Star Travel. So, yeah, thank you so much.